Have you ever heard of the Brno Death March? No? It took place in 1945. Guess who the victims were? Jews? Czechs? No, Germans. After the Second World War, millions and millions of Germans were expelled. Some call it a forgotten genocide, others the largest forced migration in history. Stay tuned, because in this video I am going to talk about the German expulsions after the Second World War. Hey, welcome back, regular viewers. If you're new, I'm Stefan. I'm a history teacher covering history on location. I'm standing on a hill overlooking Brno, the city in the Czech Republic. And if you want to learn more about history and all kinds of other related stuff, please consider subscribing. Do hit the notification bell to join the hustle. Let's go. Germany underwent some severe territorial changes. What you need to know for now is that basically Poland's borders shifted 200 kilometers to the west at Germany's expense. East Prussia was carved up by the Soviets and the Poles. And all the Germans that were living in these former German territories, they were expelled. They had to go to Germany. But why? Why were these people expelled? Well, for that we need to go back a few years. At the beginning of 1943, the Germans lost the Battle of Stalingrad, and after that they were put under defense. The Battle of Kursk was another blow for the German army, and in the beginning of 1945, the Red Army entered German soil, East Prussia. Now, note here that till the very last moment, German civilians were forbidden to flee westwards, although some evacuations were carried out at the end of 1944. Note here that these evacuations were carried out in a hastily manner during the coldest months of the year. Countless German civilians froze to death on the road. When the Red Army entered East Prussia, they indulged themselves in rape, pillage and plunder. Alright, I want to make a distinction between Volksdeutsche and Reichsdeutsche. Volksdeutsche were basically ethnic Germans that lived outside of Germany, because in the previous centuries Germans had spread out to the whole of Central and Eastern Europe. There were German settlements in Romania, Hungary, and there were even Volga Germans that lived in what was now the Soviet Union. Then there were the Reichsdeutsche. These were basically German citizens that lived within the German Reich. Now, both types of Germans fled westwards out of fear of reprisals by the Red Army. Flash forward to the 7th of May 1945, the Second World War was now over, and many Germans that fled from the Eastern territories wanted to go home. However, their land was not home anymore. As explained before, Germany lost a lot of Eastern territory after the Second World War. And also, during the Potsdam Conference, it was agreed that there would be ethnic homogeneous states. So basically what this meant was that Germans had to live in Germany, Poles had to live in Poland, Ukrainians in Ukraine, and so on and so forth. Historian Timothy Snyder puts it in a broader perspective. The territory of post-war Poland was the geographical center of Stalin's campaign of post-war ethnic cleansing. In that campaign, more Germans lost their homes than any other group. Some 7.6 million Germans had left Poland by the end of 1947, and another 3 million or so were deported from the democratic Czechoslovakia. About 900,000 Volga Germans were deported within the Soviet Union during the war. The number of Germans who lost their homes during and after the war exceeded 12 million. The flight and deportation of the Germans, though not a policy of deliberate mass killing, constituted the major incident of post-war ethnic cleansing. Now, according to the terms set at the Potsdam Agreement, these evacuations had to be carried out orderly and humane. But did this really happen? I'm standing here on a hill overlooking the Czech city of Brno, and here the tragic Brno Death March took place. At the end of May 1945, the German inhabitants of Brno, back in the day called Brünn, were forced to walk to the Austrian border. Some made it across, others were held in transit camps. Disease and malnutrition claimed many lives. Estimation of the death toll varies between 500 and 8,000. On several occasions, it culminated into massacres. In July, the Ústí massacre took place, where Germans were lined up, shot and killed. On these horrifying images, you see how German citizens are lined up and after that executed. And after that, a truck runs over the bodies to make sure they're dead. An estimated 19,000 to 30,000 Germans have been slaughtered by Czechoslovak mobs and militia. Okay, there's no way to file for the righteousness of these atrocities. The question remains, were these atrocities carried out from bottom up or top down? In other words, did Central Europeans initiate it in the massacres of ethnic Germans, or did the government order them to do so? The historian R.M. Douglas, who wrote the book Orderly and Humane, wrote the following about this. Except in a very few instances, deportation as a result of mob action did not feature in the Europe of 1945. Rather, the so-called wild expulsions were in almost every case carried out by troops, police and military acting under orders, and more often than not, executing policies laid down at the highest levels. Germans were deported from Czechoslovakia, from Poland, from Hungary, from Romania, from Yugoslavia, and even from the Netherlands. Germans spent days in cattle trucks, and during the coldest months of the year, the death rate was rampant. Now, as we know that after the Second World War, Germany was carved up by the four victorious allies: Great Britain, the United States, the Soviets and France. Many German expellees ended up in West Germany and specifically in the British and the American zones. The French did not let in German expellees because the French did not agree with the terms laid down at the Potsdam Conference. Germans spent years in transit camps before finding accommodation. An estimated 12 to 14 million Germans have been expulsed by the authorities after the Second World War, and an estimated 1/2 to 2 million Germans died in this. It definitely was a tragic aftermath of the Second World War. Until this day, there exists a federation of expellees that looks after the interests of those who got expelled. I'm curious, to any Germans watching, do you have family who was expelled after the Second World War? Please let me know in a comment down below. Now, if you want to know more about Soviet war crimes during the Second World War, you can click right here to check out that video. Do not forget to subscribe, and thank you for watching.